Portland Trailblazers' loss to the Pistons may have something looming a little bit larger. Scoot Henderson did not play in the fourth quarter, was minus 10 in his 12 minutes of action in the first half against Detroit. And that comes on the same day that the Ringer posted their least improved players of the 2024-2025 NBA season. Michael Pina did this. And Scoot Henderson, one of several players, including Mike Conley, Tyrese Halliburton, Jonathan Kuminga, Jalen Green, who all were on this list. But Scoot Henderson's critique might be the most scathing of any of them on this least improved list.
Yeah, there's a thread you can pull from this article. Jonathan Kuminga, Jalen Green, Scoot Henderson. Where did they all come from?
The G League.
The Ignite. I have said it multiple times now. I think not only was it a problem, it has and did a disservice to every single player.
Yeah. And guys like Mike Conley, it's like, dude, father
He's
time, undefeated.
38.
Tyrese Halliburton, that injury that he had in the playoffs last year, or in the regular season.
The hamstring, yeah.
And then leaked into the playoffs, it still looks like it is affecting him. And then you have, Scoot is on this list. And I'll just read the first paragraph because, boy, this one is scathing from Michael Pina. It's hard to be the most disappointing player in your draft class 2 years in a row, but despite expectations taking a downward turn after his abysmal rookie season, Henderson has somehow done it. He isn't worse per se, but it's hard to go lower when you're already in the basement. In his rookie season, Scoot committed more turnovers per 100 possessions than anybody else and had the lowest true shooting percentage among all qualified players. His jumper is still so broken that there was one play earlier this season in which he caught a pass with less than 2 seconds on the shot clock, and the nearest defender still decided to close out on his teammate.
And that's the thing here. For everybody who is clamoring for Scoot Henderson to play more minutes, and I have a rule: I don't kill rookies on their first contract, so I'm not out on Scoot. He has been disappointing. There's not a single metric you can point to and be like, hey, there's something here. Again, according to Cleaning the Glass, okay, his points per shot attempt, while improved, it has gone from the 9th percentile last year to the 16th percentile this year. His turnover rate, while improved league-wide, from the 5th percentile to the 14th percentile, he's gone from 17.5% turnover rate to 18.4. Okay? His shooting, he has gone from 7th percentile in the league in rim finishing to 14th percentile in the league. And again, low numbers here are bad.
Yeah.
His effective field goal percentage has gone from the 7th percentile to the 16th percentile. His three-point percentage has gone from the 20th percentile to the 18th percentile. For everybody who's like, well, Scoot gets them organized and they do this. Look, man, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. I do agree that he gets them organized. But if you're atrocious at the rim, you're atrocious as a three-point shooter, you're turning the ball over at a league-high rate, and you're like, well, but the intrinsic little... Brother, find another place to sell it.
Yeah.
He has got, for him to get the minutes that you want, for all of the, get rid of Ant and give it to Scoot, he has got to earn it. Yeah. If he puts 25, 30 games together where you start seeing things make a little bit more sense, sure, let's go down that path.
I think there's a point in here where I go, yes, this is kind of what I've seen watching Scoot, and it's one of those things where you go, man, is something ever going to click in this regard? Pina says he still thinks too much, doesn't seem to trust his own athleticism in spots where he absolutely should.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like when you watch Scoot, there are long stretches of the game where it doesn't feel like he has an idea of where he wants to go with the ball when he gets it in his hands, right?
Yeah.
And that's not, he doesn't trust whether it's trusting his athleticism or trusting the system and what they want to run conceptually on the floor. Like, it just doesn't seem like he has a lot of trust in himself or what they're trying to do.
The thing that, I've mentioned this before. I've talked to a bunch of starting with in Scoot's rookie year, the first probably 25, 30 games when veteran point guards came to town, I sidled up with multiple all-stars and was like, hey, I'm kind of doing this like background research for Scoot. I just like, what are the things that you needed to learn as a rookie point guard? Like, what were the most important things? And to a man, it is understand your matchup, have a plan, be decisive. And those are the three things that Scoot Henderson does not show regularly. That is, to me, that is the more underlying issue than the shooting or the finishing. Like, it just doesn't look like he knows what he wants to do and when he wants to do it. Now, when he does show that, it looks better. I was talking to a scout when they were here on their last homestand, and I was asking him about Scoot. And I go, what do you see with him? And he goes, beyond the skill stuff, he's just not precise. And I go, what do you mean by precise? He goes, watch his footwork when he drives. And I go, yeah, it's a problem. And he goes, that's the thing. If you don't know how many steps it takes you to get to a certain spot, how can you have your feet underneath you? Like, when you drill this stuff, everybody wants to be like, oh, you're just hooping. Go watch James Harden, Chris Paul, Damian Lillard. Watch guards who their Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Do you think that's just him like freewheeling on the fly? Or has he repped that footwork a million times? And not just doing it to do it, it's precise. It's 1-2 here. It's the same thing over and over. Like, Ant and Dame is a good one. I don't like going to it because everybody hammers it. Look at their footwork. It is the same every single time. And it's like, you're starting to see Shaedon tighten that up. And look at the results. It's getting better. The thing that stands out is that everything about Scoot needs to be tightened up. Everything about him, whether it's precision with his footwork, whether it's precision in his passing, precision with his finishing. It's the craft. And I think it all started with the Ignite. I think that's where it all started.
And I think being in the Ignite when he was, 17 years old?
Yeah, he's there for 2 years.
He was there for 2 years. Coming into the NBA when you are 19 years old. And look, I think people forget he is still 20, and he can shore up a lot.
Yes.
But at the same time, there is, in some of those numbers that you were reading off, were improvements, right?
Yes.
But overall, from year 1 to year 2, even those small improvements are a regression because of the fact that he has played, 90
10
some
games from 100 games right now. I think he's at 90
Okay.
or 91. Yeah, it's.
I mean, those are considered a regression because the game should be slowing down, and it's not.
Yeah.
Some numbers are going backwards. Others, we've seen some slight improvements.
And he's had more moments this year than he did all of last year combined.
But I think that those 2 years at 17 and 18 years old with the Ignite, coming into a situation where expectations were through the roof, and we're not helped by the fan base or the organization, if we're being quite honest, when you draft a guy 3rd overall and you want, they told us that, they were going to be asking a lot of Scoot Henderson as a foundational block of this team, and he wasn't ready for it. And
they started
we're seeing that he's not.
They started him last year. They gave him that opportunity, and he was one of the least productive players in the entire NBA. It was very bad. It was one of those things where it was so detrimental to the rest of the team that they could no longer start him.
And I think that, as part of Pina's piece here, that where he's talking about the least improved players in the NBA, and his point on Scoot is that he's only been on the floor for 8 final buzzers this season.
Mm-hmm. I mean, last night he didn't play the fourth quarter because
didn't play the entirety of the fourth quarter, let alone when the game ended.
Because he was so poor in that game. The line in this piece, and this is where I raise the eyebrows, because when I look at Scoot, and this is kind of what I try to explain to people when, like, why is Ant doing this, or why is DeAndre doing this, or like what the veteran stuff, right? And this is from Pina, if he can't, he's just talking about Scoot here, and if Scoot, can't space the floor or be trusted with the ball in his hands, it will be hard for Chauncey Billups to play him with other members of Portland's core. Knowing their development will be affected by the strain Henderson's flaws put them through. You can't put Scoot Henderson out there with Toumani Camara, Denny Avdia, and Donovan Clingan.
That's a problem.
Who's the shooter in that lineup? It's Shaedon.
Shaedon and then Denny.
Well, I was going to say Denny.
Yeah, but Shaedon and Denny.
But those are the things that you're kind of wanting those guys to work on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a guy who is already,
but Denny he's been shooting
no.
really well.
Look, I love Denny. His flaw is that he's an inconsistent shooter.
Okay.
Like that's the thing. Like
Fair enough.
last year was his record year. I think he shot just over 37% as a 3-point shooter. And that was because he shot incredibly well from the corners. He started off incredibly poor this year. But now you're starting to see him kind of work his way into it. And this is my whole thing with Scoot. If Scoot all of a sudden flips a switch and earns minutes, give him minutes. I think when Chauncey was out and Nate Bjorkgren closed the game with Chauncey, it's very easy to close a game with the Hall of Famer. They closed the game with Scoot Henderson. Everybody's like, see, it's Nate Bjorkgren. It's like, no, Scoot was good.
Mm-hmm.
He was very good, and he got that opportunity. The very next game, he wasn't as good. Anthony Simons was better, and guess who closed the game? Anthony Simons. It's like, for Scoot, he is just, for everybody's like, well, he needs the opportunity. No, he needs to show that he can uplift himself and others. And if he does that, he will get the opportunity. Of that, I have no doubt.
Do we feel like there may be I mean, when do you pull the ripcord on it? Because of what you said, the most problematic thing that you see there is you can't put him on the floor with those foundational pieces that Portland is building with. I mean, is Scoot a guy that we see maybe on another team?
I don't think they
chance
him. I don't think it's anywhere near that with the organization. But post trade deadline, I do very much believe he is going to get a lot of room, and it might not be make or break, but
that's your time. That's your time.
Like, you got 30 games, brother.
Yeah.
Time to show it. Otherwise, then you start raising eyebrows.
It's really interesting, though, that a lot of the things that you're talking about with the craft and all that stuff. And look, this is not unique to Scoot Henderson because, as you mentioned, two of those other guys on this list are G League Ignite guys. The guys who went to the G League Ignite with the idea that they were going to learn how to be pros before getting to the pros all lack seemingly
the professional stuff,
the professionalism of what it takes to do the little things to become a great basketball player.
It's I mean, there's a reason why the Ignite folded.
Yep.
Look, and
it wasn't working.
And I'm not against those guys getting their money. Like, the reason they did that, or because they did that, it accelerated NIL. It 100% accelerated NIL because all of a sudden professional leagues were popping up as options for high schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
And the second that happened, it was like, oh, this is there it's going to go.
Yep.
So